In most civilizations of the ancient world, childhood was a time of learning, family, and gradual preparation for adult life. In Sparta, childhood was something entirely different. It was not a phase to be enjoyed, but a trial to be survived. From the moment a Spartan boy was born, his life followed a single predetermined path. He was raised not to seek happiness, wealth, or personal fulfillment, but to serve the state as a soldier. Sparta was a society built around war. Every law, tradition, and custom existed to support military strength. In such a system, children were not viewed as individuals with personal dreams, but as future warriors whose value depended on their usefulness. To understand Sparta's power, one must first understand how its boys were raised. 1. Childhood. Birth to age 7. A Spartan boy's life began with judgment. Unlike in most societies where a newborn was welcomed into the arms of family, in Sparta the child was presented to elders of the community. These men examined the infant carefully, searching for signs of weakness or physical imperfection. Strength and health were not preferences. They were requirements. If the child was deemed unfit, he was abandoned and left to die from exposure. This practice was not seen as murder, but as a form of protection for the state. For those boys allowed to live, early childhood was harsh but deliberate. Parents were discouraged from showing excessive affection. Crying was not comforted because suffering was believed to build endurance. Hunger was not immediately satisfied and cold was not avoided. The goal was simple. The boy had to become accustomed to discomfort before he could even understand it. Spartan mothers were especially important in shaping the mentality of their sons. They were respected more than women in most Greek societies, yet their role was severe. A mother's duty was not to shield her child from pain, but to prepare him for it. Courage, obedience, and honor were praised constantly, while fear and weakness were treated with contempt. From an early age, boys learned that their worth depended on strength. By the age of 7, a boy's connection to his family was deliberately broken. This moment marked the true beginning of his Spartan life. 2. Adolescence. The Agoge, ages 7 to 18. At 7 years old, every Spartan boy entered the Agoge, the state-controlled system of education and training. This was not an academic institution, but a rigid program designed to produce disciplined soldiers. From this point onward, the boy belonged to the state, not to his parents. Life in the Agoge was intentionally brutal. Boys were organized into groups and placed under constant supervision. They were given minimal clothing, often a single cloak for an entire year, and no shoes. This exposure hardened their bodies and forced them to endure extreme weather conditions. Food was scarce, leaving them perpetually hungry. Hunger, however, was not considered a problem. It was a lesson. The boys were encouraged to steal food to survive, but they were punished severely if caught. The punishment was not for stealing, but for failing to do so skillfully. This taught resourcefulness, cunning, and self-reliance. At the same time, obedience to authority was absolute. Orders were followed without hesitation or question. Physical training dominated daily life. Running, wrestling, fighting, and endurance drills were constant. Pain was expected. Complaints were forbidden. Public punishment, including whipping, was common. Boys were trained to endure pain in silence, as crying was considered shameful. Silence itself became a virtue. Spartan boys were taught to speak briefly and clearly, avoiding unnecessary words. This practice shaped the famous Spartan reputation for sharp, concise speech. Equally important was loyalty. Bonds between boys were forged through shared suffering. These relationships replaced family ties and created strong group identity. The individual mattered less than the unit. By the time Spartan boys reached their teenage years, they were emotionally restrained, physically hardened, and mentally conditioned for war. They were no longer children. They were soldiers in preparation. 3. Manhood. From youth to full citizen. Ages 18 to 30. As Spartan males approached adulthood, their training became even more severe. Around the age of 18, the most capable youths were selected for extreme trials designed to test independence and ruthlessness. One of the most feared institutions was the Crypteia. During the Crypteia, young men were sent into the countryside with minimal supplies. They lived alone, hiding by day and moving at night. Survival depended on stealth, intelligence, and endurance. Historically, this institution also served as a tool of terror against the enslaved Helot population. reinforcing Spartan dominance through fear. Participation in the Krypteia stripped away the last traces of dependence and hesitation. By the age of 20, a Spartan male officially became a soldier. However, his personal freedom remained limited. He lived in military barracks, trained constantly, and ate in communal mess halls. Individual comfort was discouraged. Marriage was permitted, but family life was secondary. Even married men often lived apart from their wives, visiting them secretly at night. The state and the army always came first. Only at the age of 30 was a Spartan man granted full citizenship. Only then could he live openly with his family and participate fully in political life. By this point, decades of discipline had shaped him completely. Fear had been suppressed, pain had been normalized, and loyalty to Sparta had become absolute. Conclusion: the Spartan system succeeded in creating one of the most disciplined and feared armies of the ancient world. Spartan soldiers were not known for creativity or flexibility, but for unity, endurance, and unwavering obedience. They fought not as individuals, but as a single force. Yet this strength came at a terrible cost. Childhood was sacrificed, compassion was suppressed, individual freedom was lost. Spartan boys were shaped into weapons long before they could choose who they wanted to be. The story of Sparta forces us to confront difficult questions. How far should a society go in shaping its children? Is strength worth the loss of humanity? Sparta answered these questions with discipline, fear, and sacrifice, and history remembers both its power and its cruelty.